I say he would be delighted. The other thing just on, we're going to record the talk Ellen just wants to do it. And we also have a lot of material, so we're going to get it all scanned. The easiest way of distributing it will be by email afterwards. So if we can get everybody's email, I have the, just pass it on to you. It's probably the easiest way of doing that, you know, so. And you never know, as I say in Harvard, this might become an annual event every year, you know. So, it would be nice to think that, especially after last night's mass in the cemetery, you know, where there's so many of our ancestors and Creedons and Harties, I suppose, and Scanlons and nice there, I must say. I found it quite moving there last night. You know. So, anyway, I suppose it's a date that I think it's set in stone, Patrick. It's the first Friday in August every year.
Yes. As Val McMahon said, and there was no need, he said, to be only in the Presbytery to find out when it is, because it is always on the first Friday in August.
So we'll kind of keep in contact with people through emails and that. You know. And the other thing, just talking about Mass last night. Mass tonight is at 7 o'clock here, and the Creedons will be remembered at that Mass.
That's in the church?
In the church, yeah, at 7.
And just to encourage you, another thing Father McMahon said one Sunday was, he said, and last Sunday's collection was £845. The funeral mass, there was lots of strangers in the name of the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit.
And what do we see? What else have we got? Toilets, is it?
Yeah, the way there.
Sorry, my name there.
Soup and sandwiches then around 1 o'clock. And we'll stroll around the village for a while, and then we'll take a trip down to Murray. The soup sandwiches are one. So other than that, I just need to know then, I know that some people are around this evening, obviously with that gig with Michael here at Mulcahy at 8:30 here, so 8 o'clock, doors open for 8:30. Yeah, it's an appropriate, relevant kind of one-man piece, so I think you'll enjoy. And I think it describes a lot of, I suppose, the rural Ireland of the 60s, I suppose. So, anyway, I'd love to see as many people as we can at that. And then tomorrow, I'm not so sure how many people really want to travel down to Cork. If there's anybody who is able to do it, great. And we'd probably take in and follow PJ's Craig in Creedon as well. So, I think that's about it. Other than that, I'm going to sit in the front of the class if that's okay.
You can read out the marriage first of all.
Oh yeah.
Before you go.
Oh, I'll do this, yeah. I suppose, well, actually how this day came about really was Patrick had sent me this by email, I think, wasn't it? Which is the extract from the wedding registry document here. So the original entry is number 15 of 1872. On the 3rd of November 1872, marriage of Cornelius Creedon of Macroom to Ellen Harty of Ballylongford. Cornelius' parents are Patrick Creedon and Deborah Donoghue. Ellen's parents, Michael Harty and Margaret Lovett. Witnesses Dennis Creedon and Cornelius Farrell, who was the parish clerk, and the priest was a Reverend Michael O'Sullivan, PP. So that kind of triggered off a discussion between Pat and myself that it would be nice to have a session here today and invite as many people as we could who are kind of keenly interested in where it all began for all of us, I suppose. for lots of us. So that's what triggered it off. And I'm going to... Oh, the other thing, sorry, I should have said, maybe it will be before Patrick gets... I've done my little bit of a chat. Maybe everybody might just, if they felt like it, would introduce themselves as we go along there. So we don't kick off with you.
Rita Creedon, married to Patrick Creedon. Michael Creedon was my father-in-law. Okay, and we still have the homestead here in Ballylongford. My daughter lives there now at the moment.
Thanks.
So that's us. That's our side.
I'm on and Pauline's wife, and I'm a blow-in originally from Carton Cross, County Monaghan.
No such thing, no, yeah.
I'm Billy Creedon. I'm here with my wife Cora, my daughter Anne, my son Linda. We live in Wexford. My father was Cornelius Creedon. He was the second son, I think, of Patrick Creedon, my grandfather, who in turn was the son of Cornelius Creedon, Con Creedon, what I think of as Con the First. I'm sure Forrest will tell us the details of Con and his life and so on far better than I could or that I know of. I've been interested in genealogy for some time, but not since I was a young man. I remember when our own children were born, I avoided putting Cornelius, the name Cornelius, because I felt there were too many Cornelius Creeds around, like at the moment, at the time. That it was descended from generation to generation to generation, and I didn't want to do that. At the same time, I didn't like the idea of abandoning Con. It was my father's, he was known as Connie, or within the family I think he was known as Con the banker.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Great.
Con the banker.
But I named one of them, well, between us we named one of them as Conleth, or Conleth. I have a nephew Conleth as well, a different story. But yeah, I just kept the Con part in Conleth's name. So we live in Wexford. We previously lived in various parts. We lived in Dublin, Ballina, Portlaoise, Drogheda, Sligo. But those are doing all this prompting. There's some fair thing I have to say. But anyhow, that's it. I've been interested in the genealogy, and I try to get my own children interested in it as well. And to some extent I've succeeded, but not to the extent that they interrogate their grandparents or their great-grandparents, which is something I should have done myself, and various people, you know, from the previous generations. But they're gone now, and I have to try and search around for their footsteps in their lives.
Yeah, and it was your mother that really interested him in the family history.
Yeah, she the story is that she and Eileen Moriarty and Peg O'Connor were out for a drive, and they were talking about family and who was related to who and whose sons, daughters, uncles and cousins. And somebody said we should write it, this should be written down, which of course everybody will agree with, but only somebody, one in three as it happens, will do. And that was Ethna Mann was married to Brendan Creedon in Tarbert at the time. She wrote out in the school copybook, and she said, and that was what really inspired me, you know, that it was the first assembly of information that I got, and it made me take an interest in it, and I tried to get now. And to be fair to her, has attended a number of functions involving the wider Creedon family. The others who might be in a position to do it are in America or in Australia. So, and even Anne herself is frequently out of the country too. But anyhow, that's what it is. I'm delighted to see so many people here. Some people, not so many people with an interest in it, and I'd say the interest will be spurred on by this small group that's here today, relatively small, but otherwise relatively big. So that's more or less.
Thanks very much, Chris.
That's yours, this speech, mate.
My name is Miriam Creedon. My married name is Malali. And my two sisters here, where Catherine lives in Swords. I live in Kilkeown, County Meath, and Christine lives in Killan, County Wexford. We're the daughters of Jim Creedon. He was Jim the banker, the son of John the banker. So I'm Miriam the banker. So we again, our Billy and Cora will be our aunt and uncle. So we're interested in the family history. I suppose we this is kind of the first one that we've attended. So it's we do meet, I suppose, at funerals and weddings and things. But thanks, Billy. And so that's I have Catherine isn't married. I have two children, one in Australia, Perth, and one girl that just finished college. So Christine has one daughter, Katie, who's currently in college, and so that's sort of we're a smallish family, smallish branch of the family.
No cons in our family.
Is it just the three girls?
Yeah, three girls. I maintain they gave up after me.
Thanks.
Up to you.
Sean Creedon. I was born on this village in Main Street, Ballylongford. I have a sister, Maura. She lives in America. And my father was John Creedon. He was second youngest of the 10. Yeah, and he was a twin. And the other baby died at birth, and his name was Thomas. So they had another child then after that, and they called him Thomas. Yeah. Mm. So that's it.
Thanks, Sean.
Pat Moyer, born here in Ballylongford until the early 50s. My mother was Eileen Creedon, and she would have been a sister of Brea's father, no, Mike. And I spent a lot of time with my grandparents here up in Ballymaxy, because I was a kind of a free agent at the time when they were alone. I used to stay with them, and my memories of Ballymaxy are that they always had geese, and they never, 1 year the gander died and they had the eggs were no good, and I used to have a goose egg for my breakfast every morning. So that's it.
I'm Angela Creedon, now Tellers, and I'm here with my daughter Laura, and we're living in Edenderry at the moment. I was born in the house in Tarbert, like all of us. Mm-hmm. So a lot of us. 4 of us. And I don't remember much about the Creedon side of the family, so I'm really interested in that part of the family because we had more influence from our mother's side. I don't know why that was. I actually had a hand in the family tree writing out, but when Mammy wrote it out in the copybook, she gave it to me and I was doing typing at the time, or learning typing, and I typed it up. But it's kind of old at the moment now, it needs to be updated. And I'm glad to be here today anyway.
Thanks,
Hi, I'm Helen Creedon. I'm Angela's sister, and I live in London. I've got 3 children. My memory of Ballylongford, I suppose, is on the rare occasions that my father would be persuaded to bring us over, and we'd come over and we'd go up to the hill and we'd have great fun. So I'm very interested, like Angela, I'm very interested in finding out more about the Creedons.
And my name is Jane Beer, like the pint, so I married an Englishman. But my grandfather was Michael Creedon, who was one of 10 of that Creedons. And I spent every Sunday with my grandfather and my grandmother. But my grandmother used to she had 10 kids of her own, so I think she wasn't very interested in us. But my grandfather was wonderful. And I spent a lot of my holidays with him, and I absolutely adored him. So I've only started to get interested in this, and I don't know anybody. Billy and I have been living in Wexford. We've only met today for the first time, which is ridiculous. But anyway, I'm delighted to be here too. And I have 2 children. I live in North Wexford, near Carlow, up near Bunclody. And one of my children lives in London, the other one's at home. And that's it, really. I've become a granny, and I'm delighted with myself.
I'm Mary Creedon, Carmody now. I'm married to Morris Carmody, who's from the Tarbert area. His uncle would have been Eddie Carmody, who was shot here in Ballylongford. I'm the eldest of the 7 children of Brendan, Creedon and Esna Mahan. And like Helen, I have fond memories of Tarbert, and I used a lot of pester power on my father to bring us to Ballylongford. We used to be dying to go to Ballylongford when I was a child because there was a bakery here called Hanrahan's. I think there was a few bakeries, but Hanrahan's was our favourite. And we loved it.
There were 3 actually.
Were there 3? Yeah. And we wouldn't be like... Daddy at that time either cycled, my parents didn't have a car, and he either cycled over and back to Ballylongford or he got the bus.
Or the mail car.
Or even earlier than that, he got the mail car. He travelled by the mail car. And so we would only be taken on the days that he used the bus. And he'd point out all the different landmarks along the way between Tarbert and Ballylongford. It was a great excursion for us. And we wouldn't be long arrived in Bally, and we would be looking for money to go to Hanrahan's, especially to buy their cornets, the beautiful cornets with, I don't think it was fresh cream, maybe it was, but we thought they were delicious. And then we'd get a bit restless when it come to the afternoon, and we'd ask him, could we go up to Ballymackesy to visit Uncle Mick and Auntie Debbie and our cousins. And so we'd head off up there, and we always got a great welcome. Mm-hmm. And I have memories of my grandfather, Patrick, and I can remember vividly the time he died. And I can remember sitting up beside him, because at that time when we were children, we used to, if somebody died in the village, as children we always ran in, knelt down and said a prayer, and came out again, but we never touched anybody who was dead. So I think he was the first. My grandfather was the first that I remember sitting beside. And I have fond memories of him as being a very gentle man and very kind man. My grandmother, Nan, I'm not sure whether they're real memories or whether it's because somebody talked about her, or people talking about her, but I just have an image of a woman with beautiful snow white hair, sitting in the corner in the kitchen in Ballymackesy wearing black. And I'm not sure whether that's a real memory or whether it's from, you know, people discussing it. So I live in Navan. I have 2 adult children, a daughter, Leanne, who lives in Amsterdam and is married with my 2 grandchildren, and a son, Alan, who lives in Kells, who just got engaged there in the last week. so that's it.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks.
I forgot to mention my wife, Margaret.
Massive Ballylongford supporter. Great, yeah. Thanks everybody. I'm trying to get out of here, right? In case I recall. But the memories of coming back with Father, of course, great. I think I might have been brought back a bit more maybe on the Saturdays to keep me out of trouble. Anyway, but the thing that struck me, 2 things really. One, that there's 7 generations of Creedons now that I'm directly part of. You know, so there was the Patrick Creedon in Macroom that we've never been able to trace in Deborah. There's the Cornelius from here who came here, and of course married Ellen Hartley. Then there's Patrick Creedon, my grandfather, who married Ellen Scanlon. And I think actually my touch on the graves last night up where Johnny Creedon is buried with my grandmother, to spell Scanlon Ian.
Owen
on her.
She's
No,
spelled
I
Owen.
think Owen on the next grave.
Yeah.
Right?
No, Ian on the next
Ian on the next one.
Is it?
Owen
Yeah.
on hers.
No,
Yeah.
I think it was Ian.
My
Anyway, I leave that check. I leave that check. But
Yeah, it's
it-
Owen on hers.
why did there's no Owen and an Ian, and
Yeah.
why it was different. But talking about how the chance meetings and finish that story. So there's ourselves, then there's my kids, and then my grandkids. But I was delighted to see my youngest grandkid, who was 3 I think now, and he was called Hugh Patrick, so that line goes kind of back to. But the other one, which is a really true story, really, which is what I suppose got me interested more than anything, was along the lines. We were driving back one Sunday with Mother in the car. My kids were young that time, and we were heading to Ballymullen, but we came the Lower Road. And as we were passing, Uncle Mick was walking out towards Lislock. So he stopped, he got into the car, and we all went back to the Lislock. So he was in terrific form that day for talking. So we spent a good hour and a half around the graves, and he talked about being at Cornelius Creedon's funeral in, I think it was September 1929. He was 13, born in 16. And he was recounting the people that were at it and the size of it, and because he was very prominent, of course, in the Fenian movement. And I remember that was fine, you know. Of course, we'd all the best promises in the world that we'd sit down with Uncle Mick and record everything he knew. Sadly, that a great regret of mine that they never know more with our father than mine too. But going back to Dublin that night, this 12-year-old kid who was the father of the guy that is Hugh Patrick said to me, he said, "She's had a good day today." And I said, yeah, what do you think? And he said, "I met somebody today." And so he's kind of words of it. I met somebody today, I shook hands with somebody today, he was 12 at the time himself, that knew somebody that was born in the family. And I thought it was, I said, God, there is something in this. Do you know, real living history stuff. Do you know where a child of 12 can make that connection between what was an event in his life, like the famine obviously being the biggest single tragedy in our country of all time, I suppose, for many of us, of which Cornelius Creedon was born into. So anyway, that's my kind of. Can I be excused now?
Before we start to have a photographs here of the man that created all the problems. There's a distribute those around. There's a post at the con commission, and you can read the letter as well.
Thanks, Sean.
lady you spoke about with the white hair, there's actually a photograph of the kitchen and bed.
I take you straight from Creedon's marriage and to his death, because it kind of frees up the whole thing. This is the Kerryman, October the 5th, 1929. Echo of Fenian's struggle. With deep regret, we announced the death on Sunday, September the 22nd, of Mr. Creedon and Ballylongford. The deceased had reached the fine old age of 87, and having always enjoyed the best of health, his death after a very short illness was a severe shock to his family. He was attended by Reverend Miles Almond, CC, who administered the last sacraments. Deceased was born in the early 40s of the last century, and his boyhood was overshadowed by the heartrending scenes of the famine years. These experiences left a very vivid impression and early aroused his fiery national spirit, so it was no surprise to find him implicated in the Fenian exploits in London in 1866 and 1867. For his complicity in these events, he became suspect, and only with great difficulty made his way to America, where he continued his activities until he finally returned and settled in Ballylongford some 50 years ago. Ever since, he has been a staunch advocate of Irish freedom, and to the last, he took a keen interest in Irish affairs. May the soil rest lightly on him, and may his spirit ascend on high to join his Maker. Remains removed to St. Michael's Church, Ballylongford on Monday evening. Requiem Mass celebrated by Reverend P.J. Creedon, C.C. Tralee, grandson of the deceased. The funeral was large and impressive. Reverend Michael Almond, P.P., assisted by Reverend Miles Almond, and Reverend P.J. Creedon assisted at the graveside. The chief mourners were Ellen Creedon, widow, Patrick, Michael, Dennis, Han, John and Thomas, sons, Ellen P. Creedon, daughter-in-law, Con P., Con M., and Reverend P.J. Creedon, grandsons, Aileen Moriarty, Peg and Sheila Creedon, granddaughters. Now, the only problem with that is that I have done quite an amount of work on the Fenians, and there is no trace whatever of Cornelius Creedon in the police records in the National Archives in Kew, in London, which of course is no surprise, because he obviously would not have been using his own name, not being anywhere foolish or anything like that. And you know, hopefully something will turn up. I thought at one stage I had it. I had an Edward McCann, stonemason, 5 feet 9 inches high, dark hair, pale complexion, whiskers under his chin, had on a dark coloured coat, cotton waistcoat, corduroy, waistcoat and trousers, black cloth cap, which he wears at an Irish angle. No, unfortunately, he later turned up in Sheffield Workhouse, so that can't have been Cornelius Creedon. Now, we have a Cornelius Creedon then. We have a Cornelius Creedon from Cork, unfortunately, who we don't know. I mean, unfortunately, we can't say whether he was old Cornelius Creedon or not, but he definitely was a Fenian, and he was in the Albert Agricultural College in Dublin, and he explains this institution is a place for training young men who intend to become land stewards and agents. Agriculture is the principal subject, chemistry, philosophy, botany, and a good many other subjects also taught here. I also have to work on the farm for a few hours every day. This was the Albert College in Glasnevin in Dublin. Now that part of the letter is fine, I say, and that wouldn't have attracted any great attention, but for the next bit, great excitement. This is September 26th, 1866 or 67, it's not too clear, I think it's 1866. It's 1866, that's it. Great excitement here in Dublin at the moment. Numbers of arrests have been made. The total do not exceed 50. Looking at yesterday's paper, I saw an arrest out at Kilcrahan beyond Bantry of a young man named Cronin. I suppose that must be Michael Cronin, the teacher. I also read a letter on Saturday's paper from Mr. Barrett saying Bantry and its vicinity is in a quiet state for some time, but the Fenians are very numerous in that quarter. And he goes on then to talk about the people from the Cork that he knows who were lodged in Cork and Bantry jail. He said you had pleasant times last winter in Cork. practicing your shooting, and I am sure you can't feel sorry now to have the county proclaimed under martial law. Just what you deserve. No, you know, and that letter was intercepted, and the police went to the Albert College to be told by the principal that Mr. Cornelius Creedon had absconded. So he just got away in time. Now we can't prove, you see, whether he's our Cornelius Creedon or not. He may well have been. Thomas Lynch of Glenflesk was arrested in Bantry. Described by the local magistrate, the Fenian prisoners in Cork jail were well fed by Lynch, sworn in by James Creedon, not alone head Fenian centre for Bantry, but from Macroom and Skibbereen, a native of Inchigeela. And that Thomas Lynch was well in. He got a reference from Bishop Moriarty. It didn't do him any good because he was kept in Mountjoy for a year and a half. And we actually have somewhere or other James Creedon's picture. I don't think I could make out any family resemblances, but that is James Creedon of Inchigeela, who was one of the Fenian Brotherhood, leader of the Fenian Brotherhood. So it is no surprise then that that Con Creedon was involved in all these things, and I have no doubt that we probably will be able, hopefully in time to come, to get some trace of these activities in England, because there's lots of these are the boys that tried to blow up the Clerkenwell prison, and there are photographs, and there's lots of other photographs as well. So if we could, hopefully, might be able to trace his name. The Cork Fenians were very active people. This is December 1867, after the rising, the barony of West Muskerry, County Cork. As the railway train was leaving Dunishka, a large stone was thrown in at the window of one of the carriages in which two officers of the 9 Lancers were travelling. Fortunately, without doing them any injury, I hereby offer a reward of £20 to any person who shall give information. So that was the Cork Fenians. Now the next time we come across Cornelius Creedon is when he arrived here in Ballylongford in 1872 to slate, definitely to slate the church, and perhaps indeed to do some of the plaster work in the church, because he was both a slater and a plasterer. And what we do know is that this church he slated before he came to Ballylongford was Warren Point in County Down. And here he met Ellen Hartier, and as Pat read out, he married Ellen Hartier. And of course, for years and years, I fondly imagined that he was a Cork version of Grandad, as the lads have described him. Very gentle, kind man, very patient man. Nan will be more impatient by far away. Things got hot. By Jane, we go for an old walk down to see the well. By Jane, we'll go for a walk. I was by Jane. By Jane, we'll go for a walk down the field. When things get hot. I don't remember this now. This is Mama's. That things got very hot one day anyway. And Nan said, she said, I said, take that jug of water. She said, throw it out. And Grandad was told from Grandad anyway. Took the jug, threw the jug out the scullery window. I took that for. I did what you told me, like I always do. So I fondly imagined that Cornelius Creedon would have been something like that. And I have discovered that Cornelius Creedon was in fact nothing like that. He was a highly cantankerous and litigious person. And within 2 years, in 2 years of being married, yes, within 2 years of being married, he spent much of his time in Ballylongford Petty Sessions Magistrates Court.
Oh my God.
Complainant. Now this is not an order, but they're all 1874 and 1875. Now wait till you hear this. Now this, I could see why he was a fiery, whatever I said he was there in the beginning. Complainant. Catherine Hartier. Now you can be finding out who Catherine Hartier was. Complainant Catherine Hartier of Ballylongford, spinster. Defendant Cornelius Creedon of Ballylongford, slater. Witnesses of the complainant Catherine Hartier herself, Patrick Brassel, Martin Hegarty and Julia, it may be Hegarty. that the said defendant Cornelius Creedon on the 7th of November 1874 did unlawfully assault and beat the said complainant Catherine Hartdale without any cause whatever, fined 5 shillings and half a crown. Complainant Catherine Hartdale of Ballylongford, etc. Defendant Cornelius Creedon, etc. The Judas said Cornelius Creedon on the 27th of January 1875 at Ballylongford did commit willful damage and injury by unlawfully entering the complainant's garden and digging and tilling the same against the said complainant's will. And the magistrates made no ruling because they said there was a question of title. So I say we can say that Catherine Hartdale was some relation of Ellen Hartdale's without a doubt. Complainant Cornelius Creedon of Ballylongford, Parish of Ahow, etc. Defendant Patrick Lyons of Ballylongford, pensioner. Witness for the complainant himself, for the defendant Martin Mulvihill and Catherine Hartdale. For the Judas said defendant Patrick Lyons did, what did he do? Assault, strike and knock down Cornelius Creedon on the 19th day of February 1875. Case dismissed. Complainant Cornelius Creedon of Ballylongford, etc. Defendant Catherine Hartdale, etc. That on the 19th day of February 1875, you, Cornelius Creedon, used threatening language towards Catherine Hartdale, for which she seeks to have you bound to the peace towards him. And there was no ruling made in that case. And this one get in. Oh yeah. Complainant Catherine Hartdale, defendant Cornelius Creedon. The Jew said defendant Cornelius Creedon on the 6th of June 1874 did unlawfully, willfully and damage and destroy a garden of growing mangels and potatoes, property of Catherine Hartdale, causing damage to the extent of 1 shilling sterling or thereabouts. Dismissed on the merits with no cost. Complainant Patrick Lyons, defendant Cornelius Creedon. Witnesses for the complainant Patrick Lyons himself, James Gleeson, Michael Mulvihill and Catherine Hartdale. On the 19th day of January 1875, you, Cornelius Creedon, did assault, beat, bruise, knock down, cut and dislocated Patrick Lyons' shoulder, left shoulder. And from the injuries thus received, he became insensible and confined to bed. Now that one was sent on to the quarter sessions in the stores at the higher court, and those are not available as yet. But I'll have to trace that, see what happened to poor Con. But that was the only time that it went anything further. Complainant Patrick Lyons, defendant Cornelius Creedon. For the complainant Patrick Lyons, James Gleeson, Michael Mulvihill and Catherine Hartdale. For the defendant Patrick Scanlon. So the Scanlons are making an appearance here. The Jew Cornelius Creedon on the 19th of January 1875. That's the same one again, that's the second hearing of the same case before it went to the thing. He became insensible and so on and so forth. So there we get an idea of Cornelius Creedon's dealings with his neighbour, and there should be another one somewhere because there was the Tyfords. This is the other one, I'd say. This is the other one. Complainant John Tyford of Ballylongford, defendant Cornelius Creedon. The Jew did unlawfully damage the said John Tyford's potato garden by entering it and digging it and tilling it against the complainant's will, and that was adjourned and that was dismissed on a later date. Now these would be the people would have been with the lots behind the old house, Hartley's old house, and I presume this was all involved with those lots. But I mean, it gives you an idea of the kind of person that Cornelius Creedon was. Not kind, gentle, and whatever else he said about that he was.
They're striking a point of what good value they got from their court appearances, because they were appearing in court, but there was no fine. The case was dismissed.
Yes.
So no wonder they came back again.
And it's very interesting that they represented themselves. They represented themselves and But I'll have to find out what happened to him at the quarter session, because that was serious enough when it was sent forward to the quarter sessions.
What relation with Catherine Harty then to it?
That's what I'm asking you, sure, that's
So what she might find his mother?
Spinster Anne,
maybe.
as our great friend, what's his daughter's name, Foster, what's his first name? Roy Foster. Roy Foster was part of a programme we did on the O'Reilly's house here in Ballylongford, and he was very skating on the Spinster Aunts, which was the Spinster Aunts of the family, and if the Spinster Aunts included Anne O'Reilly and other Spinster Aunts that he wrote about later on will be Thomas McSweeney's sisters, and as I said at some gathering recently, if the Spinster Aunts got their hands on Roy Foster, he'd be quite mad when they were finished with him, and O'Reilly and the McSweeney's. Now we have here then, you're running out, we have to speed up. We have here then, in 1878, we find Cornelius Creedon slating a house for Henry Fitzell out the Low Road, paid for by Thomas W. Sands. November the 9th to Cornelius Creedon, slater for 16 1/4 squares, whatever squares of slating were, 16 1/4 squares at 5 shillings, £4 1 and 3pence, attendance 16 6pence, and labour 15 shillings. So he was walking away there in the locality. Now, the second bit then is what was Ballylongford like when he got here. And we had to speed up in Ballylongford when he got here, but anyway, that's something like what Ballylongford looked like. No, ignore the 2-storey houses down at the end and the store, they weren't there, but apart from that, that's what Ballylongford looked like. This is the house that he lived in behind Robbie Cox. If this is Robbie Cox, you can't see the house too well, but it shows it. And again here, behind these two nice girls in that white pinafores, you can see the house again.
This one here is the
that's right, You can see the house again with the kind of the bare windows, detached house. So in 10 minutes then, what was Ballylongford like in 1872, and what were people talking about in 1872 when Cornelius Creedon got here? And the first thing they were talking about, and the thing that everyone in Kelly was talking about in 1872, was a very interesting piece of legislation called the Ballot Act. And that was that you could go into the polling station and put your paper into the box, because up to that, everyone voted openly. So everyone knew how you voted. So that was big popular conversation here in Ballylongford in 1872. Now, not everyone had to vote, and women did not have a vote, and they didn't have it for a long time after 1988. You had to have a lease, as they said. You had to have a lease of land, or you had to have property worth £2. You had to have a freehold property worth £2, which was a lot of money in 1872. Most farmhouses were valued at 17 shillings, 18 shillings, 25 shillings. Everyone would have had the vote. That £2 was it. I don't know if you remember when you went to school learning about Daniel O'Connell and the 40 shilling freeholder, that you would have a freehold worth 40 shillings, £2, and you didn't actually have to have a freehold. You could have something enacted worth £2, again, which was a lot of money, and what was the favorite daughter when they came into the polling booth or the polling station, and the polling clerk said this was open voting, and he said, what would a ragamuffin and blackguard like you, this sort of a lad, he's all coat tied up with hair over and on. He said, you haven't any land. I haven't, he said, but I have an article, and I'd worth £2, and I'd like to see the man that would take it off me. And he opened his coat and took out a blunderbuss. He was allowed to vote. Then when Cornelius Creedon opened his front door and he walked down the street, he came to Richard Brahilly's business premises. And those of you who remember O'Sullivan's across the road would have a fair idea of what Rahilly's was like that many years before, in 1872. They had a grocery. They were selling both black and green tea, so Ballylongford very sophisticated. Green tea in Ballylongford in 1872. They were selling turkey coffee, raw and refined sugar, spices, old malt and cough whiskey, Jamaica rum. They used to bottle, they didn't have a public house, they had a wholesale license. They used to bottle the black beer that was good for you, the black stuff that was good for you. When Anora Elliot was sent down to the Ursulines in Waterford, she was instructed, or the nuns were instructed, she should drink a glass of buttermilk every day. And Mother Mary Patrick said that was no good, and she gave her a glass of black stuff instead. So when she was at school on Waterford, she drank a glass of water every day. And science advice, she lived to be in her 90s. They had a wholesale wine and spirit store, they had bakery, milling and corn dealing, fish, curing, dealing in salmon, oysters, immigration agents, shipping agents, selling timber, deal, planks, hardware, ironmongery. So that will give you an idea of what Ballylongford was like, what Rahilly's was like. Ballylongford had 3 bakeries then, 14 groceries, 3 settlers, including the Brandons, still with us, they're not settlers, 3 carpenters, including the Camleys, still with us, not carpenters, 4 blacksmiths, including the McElligotts, still with us, 3 tailors, a dressmaker, a milliner, they were all set for the belly races, a wheelwright, 2 churches, 3 schools, and the petty sessions courthouse. And I should say now, the petty sessions courthouse was the late show of the 1870s and the 1880s, and it sat on Wednesdays and Fridays, and anyone that could get off work was at the petty sessions, and you can see why. And if we had more time to go through the cases, you could see why as well. There were 4 big fairs every year: May, July, October and December. Dr. Rice resided in Shanview, formerly the House of Director, Robert Wentz. There was oyster dredging, fishing, exported salmon, tough boats brought down limestone from Escaton and carried up turf up the river. And I should say that Ballylongford was only in the halfpenny place compared to Talbot. In 1872, Talbot had 5 hotels, 2 solicitors, 4 immigration agents, 4 insurance agents, 4 news agents, 5 bakers, 3 booksellers, educated people in Talbot, 6 china and glass establishments, 9 dressmakers, including Miss Harry, the most bereaved what to talk about, 22 grocers, 15 public houses, 4 masons, 3 builders, and a telegraphic office, ... Morse code. So Talbot was a thriving and illustrious place. Creedon in his young days went through the famine in Skibbereen, and the famine was nothing was almost as bad here in Ballylongford, not quite. We measured out deaths in hundreds, not in the thousands that you had in Skibbereen. Times when agriculture went up and down in the 70s and the 80s. The 70s were good, 80s went down. When he was slated to church here, Father O'Sullivan was the parish priest. His curate was Father Horgan, a native of Lixna. Father Tim was a huge man. He was well over 6 feet, built accordingly. But he got rheumatic fever when he was young, and in a Christmas sick call of all things, he got thrown wet and he got pneumonia, and that killed him. He was a very young man when he died. But he was a famous man because he worked down in Irees, down in Cork, for 3 years. And there he came into contact with the efforts which were being made at the time to convert the Irish to Protestantism through the use of the Irish language. And he was called to the bedside of this man who had converted to become a member of the Church of Ireland. And when he went there, the rector was sitting by the man's bedside, and Father Horgan asked the man, which did he want, the rector or the priest? And he said, the priest. And he said, Father Horgan said, and the rector had some objection. He said, but I caught him by his collar and his belt, and I deposited him outside the door of the house, and I locked the door after him. He was a great man. Sometime after, anyway, he was fishing for a salmon down the Capel Bridge, and the pastor O'Rourke asked him for his licence, which of course he didn't have. And the words led to deeds, and Father Tim threw the rector into the river. And of course the director was nearly drowning, so he had to jump in after him and put him back out again. And when he used to tell that yarn, he used to end like this, and of course he said, and this shows which is the true Church of Christ, because if it were Mr. O'Rourke's church, he would have been able to walk on the water. I think myself that, Cornelius Creedon, for all his faults, he was a great man. And there's one thing sure, that he handed down his feline tendencies to his children and his grandchildren. When the O'Reilly was appointed Director of Arms for the Volunteers in Dublin, and we decided that if they couldn't get rifles, shotguns would do very well. And all that troubled him, because he was a natural engineer, was if he could invent and develop a bayonet for the shotgun, which would not bend in two and would stick it into the enemy. But when he wanted to get ammunition, to make ammunition for these shotguns, the first person he went to was a man called Michael Creedon, who he said was his school friend in Ballylongford, and who was a skilled worker in plaster to make molds for shotgun pellets. Now, as it turned out, the plaster molds didn't work too well because they wore out too quickly, and he had to go down to the great ironmongers there in Dublin, whose name escapes me at the moment, and he had to, Tangent Haggart, no, the other crowd maybe, and he had to get copper, one's made of copper, always made of copper, but there's something there. He went down, that's the first person he went to was Michael Creedon. It was a school with him.
Who's my granddad?
Exactly.
That's a story I've never heard before.
So of course we had Johnny and back indeed involved in the War of Independence. We had that tradition of republicanism, which I think we can say without a doubt came from Cornelius Creedon. Now there is more to be found, and things will be found, because I know the last time I was in Kew, we got a release of papers on 1916, so coming out now, a release of papers from the end of 1916, pointing out the people, the danger people in Kerry, all over the country, but in Kerry, who would lead the next rebellion, and pointing out that these people should be watched and picked up if necessary. Some very odd people among them, Master Quill and Tarbert, who he may have had Republican sympathies, but he was not the kind of a man to go and lead a revolution, but he may have been reading Republican papers. So there will be more and more stuff coming out, so hopefully we will be able to find out about more what Con did in England. But he was a remarkable man. He was obviously quite a cantankerous man, but he had very good points, and I think he passed them down. We hope to his children and his grandchildren and his great grandchildren, and as Paddy said, all down along through all those lives, Paddy, all down. So there we go.
You said he was in America, was he?
He was in England. No, I traced it, as I said, if that is him, he has traced it to England. No, the Kellyman says he was in America, and I have no doubt that that's quite true, because he would have been one of many, that he would have been one of many, but they didn't choose their own names for quite obvious reasons. That's the whole problem.
Yeah, I'd heard that he had gone to England and he ran from England as well.
Yeah, I'd say so, because he got very hot in England just here.
And apparently he worked in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, I heard.
Right.
Doing plastering. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, but he definitely...
In America?
Yeah, in New York.
He definitely did plastering for the Sanders. He did plastering as well as slating.
Yes.
He definitely did plastering because he worked for the Sanders, who were one of the big house people around here, and he was employed as a plasterer as well as a slater. So he definitely was skilled. And I should have said that, of course, that was another thing that he passed down through the generations, because we have all the churches and that in Dublin built by the Creedons, And all the plaster work and all the churches done by the Creedons, you know.
On the Harty side, anybody left in Ballylongford?
No, that Harties and Ballybudden are the same Harties.
Oh, right,
Those
yeah,
Harties are the same
yeah.
Harties.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
they-
No other. Okay.
And is there any information on his wife? Is it Ellen Hartig? No information.
People didn't, very little about very
About
little.
women.
There's only, I mean, if you think back to 1966, was it was there at the time, there was so little about the women in 1916.
Yeah.
Talked about the hour and after the women in 1916.
Yeah.
You know, which is the big thing that has changed now.
I think they were connected with Harties and Hartford.
That's what same Harties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The enemy is always in court,
She could be yours here. But you know yourselves about you know the Paddy Kavanagh and the famous poem epic and Stepping the Bones. I don't know if I have it here or not, but anything to do with I probably have that here. Anything to do with land was like to bring out. I think that you know this is one of the things that people from outside can't understand is this great. What?
The borders.
Oh, the borders, they're home from land. Oh, yeah. I have lived, Patrick, I have lived in important places. Times when great events were decided. Who owned that half road of rock and no man's land surrounded by our pitchfork iron claims? I heard the Duffy shouting, "Damn your soul!" and old McCabe stripped to the waist, seeing step to plot, defying the blue Castile. Here is the march along these iron stones. That was the year of the Munich battle, which was the most important. I inclined to lose my faith in Ballyrush and Gorchin, till Homer's ghost came whispering to my mind. He said, I made the Iliad from such a local row. Gods make their own importance. So there you are, and it's just exactly the same here with the lots at the back of the houses. They're obviously Miss Harty thought was her lot, and Concrete thought that he was after marrying into the lot.
And is Harty a common name?
No,
Because I know some up actually in Nina.
Is that so? Yeah. Most of the Harties that I know of around here are actually related, you know, because Michael Ali's grandmother was Harty, and she is related to the Harties in Ballybudden. Oh, yeah. And the McNamara's are related to the Harties in Ballybudden. So we're related to the Harties in Ballybudden. You know?
And your Harties up in Linamore.
That's the Harty I'm talking about, Michael Ali's grandmother. Michael Ali's mother was Harty.
Oh, Lolly,
There's not a heart is over in it's not related.
What I was saying, no, Penny might wander up to the church because that's kind of important.
Oh, yeah. There's some water there if anybody wants it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, anyway,
Yeah.
I think we're